Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. I guess today, Shante Frazier. Shante, it's good to have you on. I appreciate you being here. Can you tell us, first of all, where you're calling in from and what you do for a living with WellCapped?
Yes, I'm Shante Frazier, as you mentioned, and I'm calling in from Atlanta, and I'm the co-founder of WellCapped, which is the first rental platform for hair and wigs and hair extensions, and we can get into where that idea came from later on.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And the first question would be, obviously, can you tell me a little bit more about your personal and professional background and what kind of got you leading up to wanting to work in this space, but also what was kind of the big thing you saw missing in the market that was kind of your catalyst to creating this brand specifically?
So from Canton, Ohio, a smaller town, grew up in a close-knit family, went to undergrad at Spelman College, where I learned so much about the world. And during college, I joined the military, mostly to pay for school, if I'm being honest. But during that time, I learned about discipline and just sticking with things, even through the hard times, and just not giving up on yourself and not quitting when times get rough, because that's where you grow and that's where you learn a lot. Also, after graduating, I became an analyst for Progressive Insurance, where I learned a lot taking data and telling stories with data and figuring out, seeing patterns in data and learning different tools that allow you to see those patterns. And even though I learned so much in that role, realized that I didn't really like insurance. Similar to the military, it's a lot of regulations, there's a lot of rules, and I'm a rebel by nature, so it wasn't really the best environment for me. So I went to business school, did my MBA internship at Amazon in their retail leadership development program, then took a full-time offer at PwC, and they said I could live in Chicago, Atlanta, or New York City, and I picked Atlanta because of the low cost of living at the time. And then about 3 years in that role, I decided I wanted to start my own company, but had no clue where to go or what I wanted to start. So joined something called the Venture Studio, which is where they give you capital up front to build the company. And yeah, here we are today with WellCapped.
That's amazing. No, I appreciate you sharing a little bit about your backstory. I always love all the big whys and the backstories behind these brands when they come on the podcast. So I guess where'd you get this exact idea from? I mean, was there a personal experience or something you just kind of noticed out there that was a big need? I mean, this obviously is a huge need in the market, but it's such a novel and unique idea. I love that. So when did you actually come up with this idea, and when was your official launch? I guess when you made kind of your first sale, I suppose.
Yeah, I actually didn't come up with the idea for the company. My aunt gave it to me.
Oh, okay.
So I mentioned I went through the Venture Studio, which is where they pick people who they believe would make good entrepreneurs, and they give you capital and they work with you to validate an idea and to get it to market. I went through one back. It's called InMotion, and it's backed by Generator. I went through that in 2021, and during the first 4 weeks, every single week you're pitching a new idea. And at the time, I was still working for PwC, didn't have a lot of thinking room to come up with a new idea. And one day I was on the phone with my aunt and venting, trying to figure out what I was going to pitch 2 days later. And my aunt said someone should create Rent the Runway for hair extensions and wigs. And I was not a fan of the idea at first, but I was spending so much money and time in my own personal life on hair extensions. And I remember during grad school, one of my favorite professors said, when you're looking for an industry to disrupt, you want three things. The first being an antiquated model, the second being a lot of room for growth, and then the last thing being a fragmented market, so you don't have to compete with people like Procter & Gamble or Unilever. And the hair extension industry hit all three of those points. So I started mapping out what the company would look like, and the name WellCapped came to me in a dream. And then that was 2021 when my aunt gave me the idea. 2022, we had a lot of interest in it. I finally quit my job to build the company full time, and then brought my cousin on board as a co-founder.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that story. I guess at that time, what was your general kind of go-to-market strategy at that time? Were you looking to sell? Obviously, the nature of the product is definitely a more direct to consumer, obviously. What was your kind of general strategy to drive interest and drive more eyes on the website and doing things that way? Were you taking more of a social media approach? Did you do any kind of paid advertising early on? What was your kind of journey with the general marketing strategy with something like this, such a novel idea?
Yeah, I thought I knew everything, and then I found found out I knew nothing. So I thought I built a Squarespace page, put like 5 wigs on the site that looked terrible, and then made a Facebook post. But I had maybe 2 or 3 people join and pay full price. And I knew I was onto something, but had no clue what it would look like. I used to be a pricing analyst at Progressive Insurance, so kind of used that whole, I knew it had to be a subscription model for the price to make sense. And I ended up being right there in the beginning. Like the subscription model made a lot of sense for the company, but now we're realizing, hey, some people, they want to experiment with wigs and hair extensions for a wedding or birthday party. So now we have an offering for them too. But yeah, early days, it's a lot of me basically throwing noodles at a wall. I've been blessed because everything ended up working out the way it should have worked out. And I learned so much that now we figured out how to get in front of our customers, who our customers are. A lot of the things I just kind of guessed. I was wrong 99% of the time, but those wrong answers got me to the right answer.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. And speaking of like one of your kind of checklist things for disrupting an industry, which is like a fragmented market. So where did you kind of eventually land, I suppose, in that area where, you kind of find a lot of resonance with a certain demographic or age range? What does your kind of, I suppose, like ideal customer look like here in 2024?
Yeah, we call her the bougie Black girl. She's
Love
making
that.
more than the average American. She cares about how she looks. She's really into tapping into her softer side of life, and she works out. She cares about the way her body looks, but she is older than we thought. We thought we were catering to a younger crowd, early 20s, and we found that our sweet spot is with women over the age of 35. And now it's even trending even higher than that. So we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we get in front of the 40 plus year old women, because they're not on TikTok like we thought, or Instagram in that case. So yeah, now when you look at our website now, it's no longer catering to that trendsetter. It's more towards a woman who is in her 30s, still young, still vibrant, but spending more money on the way she looks and like giving back to herself and pouring into herself.
Yeah, it's amazing. That definitely makes sense. And I think with something like this, I can see it probably like resonating with the younger crowd. It might just be because it is a premium product, maybe more of just a price point thing. So I think that makes sense that it probably skews a little bit older, but it's interesting you're able to figure that out. Obviously, it's one of the great advantages of selling direct to consumer like you are, is getting that direct interaction and having all the data in front of you, right? So especially with your like kind of analyst background, I'm sure you're able to do a lot of, fun things with what you're able to see there. So I suppose another thing I always like to ask, which is, with things like this, do you have any kind of like proprietary like manufacturing process for these products, or are you kind of like outsourcing them through like companies that are already doing this work and kind of like just using them in that way? What is your kind of like, supply chain situation on your front end look like? I'm curious.
No, not right now. I take a pretty strong stance on, I think all good companies, the best companies, they figured out 2 things, and that's brand and distribution. So we have brand down pat. Now we're working on the distribution part. So we have a lot of exciting things coming out. A new program that I really think is going to give us that exponential growth that we need. I read the Nike story, the story about Phil Knight, maybe a year or 2 ago. And Nike never sold their own shoes. Like they weren't making their own shoes in the early days. They figured out brand, and then they started working with a sales team to figure out distribution. And they were going overseas to get the shoes and then selling the shoes here. And then once they had the revenue and the attraction and proved that they actually had a company, then they started investing in R&D and coming up with their own shoes. And we're on that same path. Right now, we've done a great job at building a brand. We haven't raised more than 500,000. No, we have. We just hit 650,000.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
But that's over 3 years, right? My aunt gave me the idea in 2021. So that's not a lot of capital when you really sit back and think about it. So we had to get really scrappy on how do we build this company? How do we build a strong brand? How do we get it in front of consumers in a scrappy way? And now we're working on that distribution part. And then the next step is, okay, now that we proved that we have a company and this works and people that our thesis about the world and where the world is going is right, now let's focus on R&D. So that'll be the next step.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I love that. And I guess what is kind of, I suppose, like at the forefront of, figuring things out on the distribution side, what is kind of the biggest thing that you're grappling with on that side of things right now as you're going through that journey?
Yeah, you mentioned the beauty of DTC, going direct to consumer. And I know it's a beautiful thing, because if you think about someone spending $1,800 on their hair, they are Sephora's best friend. They care about how they look. Who knows how much they're spending on adjacent categories? Actually, we do know because we've been asking people, but so we're able to collect all of that data from them. But direct to consumer is hard. Like it's not easy, especially when you're a scrappy company, and you're a small team, you're a lean team. So now it's, okay, how do we get in front of more customers at a faster rate and take that financial stress off of us and enable and incentivize other people to be our advocates? And who better than a hairstylist? So we had hairstylists approach us about working with us in the past, and we had like a little referral program, but now it's, hey, let's take this. We started looking at our margins and where we're looking at our value chain and what's taking up the most room in that value chain. And we realized it really is the maintenance of that inventory. So it's almost like you going old school to the old Mary Kay and Avon models, if you remember that. How do we incentivize people in the financial grade to be our cheerleaders and our advocates and get in front of their clients for us? Because that handles the maintenance part, the sanitization part, the storage part, but also that CAC cost.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And so in working with like partnering with people like, you know, like salon owners or hairstylists, are you looking to have like some of your inventory like actually in their stores, so like kind of offer the service through that? Or are you looking for more of like a affiliate thing where like they're posting on like their socials for their salons, or kind of everything, well, like all the above, I guess?
Yeah, the first part, which is them having the inventory in their salon, so sanitizing them, cleaning them, but also referring their clients to us. Right now, they take a portion of hair that they give to their clients anyway. So, hey, can you put our hair in front of your clients instead?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And what other kind of opportunities do you kind of see out there as far as like, you know, partnerships that way outside of, I suppose, salon owners? Is there any other kind of industry or like brick and mortar places you're interested in partnering with as well?
Yes, but I wish Lauren was on the call with me, because I don't know if I can say it out loud.
No, that's fine.
Now, we have some exciting things coming up that we're really excited about.
Awesome. Yeah, no worries at all. And yeah, definitely curious to know what that is. If you want to talk maybe off the air, I'd just be curious personally. But I know that's awesome. I mean, it sounds like you're doing so many like scrappy things like you should be as a growing brand. So I really appreciate that perspective. And as I mentioned before we hopped on, you know, a lot of people that listen to the podcast are other entrepreneurs in the CPG space, you know, much like what you're doing. So I really appreciate your insights there and, you know, the types of things that you're, you know, grappling with and doing, you know, to make it work as a small and growing brand. So it's really amazing what you're doing also. And I know we talked a little bit off the air about this one question I do always love to ask, and I'm curious to hear your answer to this, Shante, which is if we can go back to, I suppose we'll call it 2021. Like if you go back to that time, you kind of had the original idea for the company. If you give yourself any one piece of advice, if you can go back and start the company again, what do you think that piece of advice would be?
Shante, girl, you are wrong. Everything you think is right is absolutely wrong. But it's funny because the piece of advice I would give myself would probably hinder me from being where I am today, because I had to go through those mistakes, those failures for me to become the leader that I am today, and also to learn about the company. I thought because I was a customer, like I was our first customer, essentially our first member, so I thought I knew all of the customer discovery stuff, but I realized I was doing myself a disservice by thinking that way. So actually getting on the phone with people, calling them, figuring out what their pain points are, figuring out what their current solutions are. I thought we didn't have any competitors, but then I had to sit back and realize, like, no, we're solving a problem here. We're trying to make their extensions more affordable and accessible. No one else may be doing that by using a rental model, but other people are solving for that same problem, and they'll just start a competitor. So yeah, just relearning everything that the MBA taught me.
Right. You're probably not surprised to hear it's a very common answer I get to that question with a lot of the people that come on, which is not always that they think they know going in, but just realizing quickly, whatever the case was before you started, that you don't know enough to actually have done this. I think that like naivete in either case, I think is what like causes people to make the initial jump to doing it. But almost everybody asks that question to say, yeah, just understand that it's going to take a lot longer and you know nothing.
Yep. The blessed and the curse. Like what you said, that naivete, like it was a blessing, because if I didn't have it, I wouldn't have done this. Like if I knew the journey ahead of me, I probably wouldn't have volunteered.
That's another really funny kind of like knee-jerk reaction I get to that question is like, just don't quit your job, basically. You know, but obviously everybody always follows it up with like, no, I wouldn't change it for the world. I've learned so much. I love my customers. I love like and being able to affect people's lives, obviously. But that like quick reaction with that answer always makes me laugh too. But,
you grow so much on a journey. Like there's no job that could have taught me this much.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
No classroom either.
Yep, no, it's school of hard knocks, as they say, in making a CPG brand for sure. So that's awesome. Well, Shante, I just want to say thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate your insights, your passion for what you're doing, and it's such an awesome and unique and novel idea. And I just want to give you an opportunity as well for anybody listening listening that might be interested in maybe potentially partnering with you in the business or just wants to check out the product for themselves, what's the best way to stay in touch with you all?
Yeah, follow us on LinkedIn at WellCapped, WellCapped, on Instagram, and then my email is always an open door. So that's Shante, SHANTE at wellcapped.com.
Awesome. Well, Shante, I just want to say thank you again. I want to wish you the best of luck and continued success in all that you're doing. It's amazing. And I really look forward to us keeping in touch with you as well.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks, Shante. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.